He was a Navy SEAL, trapped in a blizzard that could freeze a man's soul. The storm wasn't just cold, it was alive, whispering of death and something waiting beneath the snow. Then he found it, a wounded black wolf, its blue eyes burning like fire in the dark. Saving it was supposed to be mercy, but it became the beginning of a miracle. As the night raged on, man, beast, and faith collided in a battle between a science and something divine. What he uncovered was never meant to be found. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and the miracles God hides in the darkest places. A fierce wind howled across the snowbound ridge, lashing icy crystals through the darkness as Corporal Jack Hawk Hawkins stood against the storm, clad in his olive-green SEAL Team 6 combat gear. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with a chiseled jaw shadowed by 3 days' stubble and steel-gray eyes that betrayed a soldier's weariness and resolve. The night pressed in on him, the swirling flurries erasing any sign of the world beyond this silent white void. Beside him sat Rex, his trusted German shepherd. 8 years old, perhaps, a powerful animal with a sable coat grizzled at the muzzle, alert amber eyes, muscles rippling even in repose. Rex's ears pricked at each gust of wind, his breath steaming in the frigid air, as though he too sensed the danger in the whiteness off the ridge. Hawk pulled his hood back and stared down the slope ahead. His mission: penetrate the derelict research facility high in these mountains, locate and secure vital biological data before the enemy did. The orders had come through encrypted channels, and Hawk had accepted them without hesitation. Yet now, standing in the freezing gale, he felt again that familiar ripple of doubt in his gut, not about the mission he trusted his training, but about the cost. Earlier that day, hours before the storm's full fury, he had watched his helicopter land on the snowy plateau, the rotors chopping at the wind like angry wings. He had stepped out onto the deck, boots sinking slightly into fresh snow, and taken a steady breath of the cold air, remembering the last mission when his comrade Lieutenant Marcus Bear Barrington had been hit by sniper fire and died in his arms. Bear had been the kind of man whose laugh came easy and whose loyalty was absolute. 6'3", barrel-chested, with a curly black beard and eyes that twinkled with humor even under fire. Watching him die had changed Hawk's view of this war. He swore then he would carry Bear's memory into every fight, that no more would he lose a trusted brother and walk away unscarred. So now, as the ice whipped around his face, Hawk felt Bear's absence like a cold hand at his back, reminding him of what was at stake. Hawk glanced at Rex. The dog's muzzle twitched, nostrils flaring as he picked up some distant scent. A faint chemical trace, maybe, or the residual exhaust of the abandoned facility's power generators. Hawk nodded, voice soft though the wind swallowed it. "Good boy." Inside he felt a spark of calm, because Rex's presence always grounded him. The dog didn't flinch as the storm battered them. He simply waited, patient and ready. That patience reflected the discipline Hawk had cultivated in himself after Bear's death, a focus sharpened by grief, a refusal to yield. The slope ahead dropped away into a narrow valley half hidden by swirling white, and Hawk knew they would climb down into it soon. He tightened the straps on his pack, adjusted the night vision goggles over his helmet, and checked his sidearm and submachine gun. Every movement was second nature. Years of training had ingrained it. But the chills still seeped into his bones, tugging at his concentration. His breath came in plumes. Sweat had begun to freeze on his brow inside the helmet's lining. He thought of home, a quiet place he rarely saw now, his little daughter's face, the warmth of her laugh. He pushed the memory away. There was no room for longing tonight, only the mission. Without warning, a low grate of metal echoed up the ridge behind him, and Rex stiffened, hackles rising. Hawk turned swiftly, gun raised. Out of the white haze emerged a sled, half buried in snow, strange markings on its side blinking faintly in the storm lamp's glow. Something about it told Hawk it wasn't just a piece of abandoned gear, it was recent. He crouched next to Rex, eyes narrowing. "Rex, on me." The dog dropped into a stalking posture, ears flat, tail down, but not tucked. Ready. Hawk's mind raced. Was the facility occupied? Had someone beaten them here? The weight of the unknown pressed on him. He thought of Bear again. How Bear used to grin and say, "No mission too cold, Hawk." Hawk swallowed hard. He had promised. Tonight he would make good on that promise. They moved silently downhill, the sled's tracks fresh beneath the snow. Hawk's boots made soft crunches. Every sense was sharpened, sound of ice cracking, wind gust shifting, distant animal cries muffled by the storm. He felt his heart thud in his chest, not from fear, but from anticipation of what lay ahead, of what they might find, of whether Rex and he would emerge intact. The valley swallowed them in white oblivion, but Hawk marched on, hand on Rex's flank, offering silent reassurance. He needed to be worthy of the memory of the friend he lost, and of the dog who trusted him. When at last they reached the hidden mouth of the gray metal facility carved into the rock, the door slightly ajar, the wind still howling, Hawk exhaled. He looked at Rex. "We're in." Inside, the unknown waited. As the storm raged overhead and snow slammed against the steel-reinforced door, Hawk felt something beyond the mission stir within him, the old pain of loss, the lit fuse of duty, the quiet hope that they might make it back. Rex dipped his head, and in the dog's eyes Hawk saw not just obedience, but loyalty, and perhaps, he thought, redemption. The door groaned. He pushed it open. The chapter ended with the roar of the storm behind them and the whisper of danger ahead. The metal door shut behind Hawk and Rex with a groan that echoed through the concrete corridor. The air inside was colder than outside somehow. It smelled of dust, rust, and long-abandoned secrets. Hawk switched on his tactical light. The beam sliced through the dark, revealing narrow hallways, peeling paint, frost climbing the walls like a silent infection. The facility seemed dead, but Hawk had learned that silence often hid danger. He gestured for Rex to stay close, and the dog obeyed immediately. Paws soundless on the frozen floor, Hawk moved carefully, his breath shallow. He could feel the weight of the mountain pressing above him. The corridor opened into a control room. Old monitors, shattered glass, and papers scattered like leaves. Hawk scanned the room, his weapon raised. Then a sound, soft, deliberate, a footstep. He spun, gun aimed, finger tensing on the trigger. From behind a broken terminal rose a woman, hands half raised, her voice trembling. "Don't shoot." Hawk hesitated. The woman was young, maybe early 30s, pale from cold, her auburn hair messy beneath a torn parka. Her face was angular but beautiful in a weary way. Her blue-gray eyes carried exhaustion deeper than sleepless nights, eyes of someone who had seen things she couldn't unsee. "Who are you?" Hawk demanded, keeping his gun steady. "Dr. Sarah Caldwell," she replied, her breath visible in the frigid air. "I worked here before everything went wrong." Sarah was a biomedical researcher, her voice calm, despite fear. Her hands were red from the cold, shaking slightly. Hawk lowered his weapon, but didn't holster it. "You're supposed to be dead," he said flatly. Sarah gave a hollow smile. "Everyone here is supposed to be dead." The words hung heavy between them. She explained quickly. After the last transmission, the project had collapsed. Power systems failed, communications went silent, and they came. Hawk pressed. "They?" She shook her head, glancing toward the shadows at the end of the corridor. "Not people? Not anymore?" Rex growled low, hackles rising. Hawk's instincts sharpened. He caught a flicker of movement beyond the doorway, something gliding across the dim hall too fast to follow. "How long have you been hiding?" he asked quietly. 4 days, Sarah said, her lips trembling. "I thought I was the only one left." Hawk scanned her expression. There was a steadiness beneath the fear, the look of someone who refused to die without meaning. He respected that. "Stay behind me," he ordered. She nodded, clutching the strap of her satchel. They moved deeper into the complex. Each step echoed faintly, swallowed by the concrete labyrinth. Hawk tried to piece together what Sarah hadn't said. Something about her tone made him think of guilt. Scientists who had seen their creations turn against them often carried that kind of weight. "What happened here, Doctor?" he asked. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward a sealed door ahead. "We were studying genetic resilience, cross-species immunity. The directive was to create soldiers who could survive any environment. But something went wrong. It always does." Her voice cracked on the last words. Hawk said nothing. He'd seen too many projects like this, too many experiments that blurred the line between progress and horror. Rex stopped abruptly, nose to the ground, muscles tense. Hawk froze, scanning the dark. A low hum filled the corridor, like the distant vibration of machinery, but deeper, alive. Then came a thump, then another. Sarah's face drained of color. "It's them," she whispered. Hawk motioned her to get behind cover. He crouched beside Rex, gun ready. The lights overhead flickered, throwing shadows that shifted like ghosts. For a moment, there was silence, and then a figure stepped into the light. A man in a tattered uniform, or what once had been one. His face was pale, eyes clouded with a strange blue shimmer, veins dark against gray skin. He moved awkwardly, as if his bones didn't quite remember how to hold him upright. Hawk's finger tightened on the trigger. The man stopped, tilting his head. "Help!" The voice was cracked, broken, human and not. Then the figure convulsed, screaming, lunging forward with inhuman speed. Hawk fired twice, the shots echoing like thunder. The body collapsed, twitching. Sarah gasped, tears stinging her eyes. "He was one of ours," she murmured. Hawk knelt briefly, scanning the corpse. The skin bore surgical scars, the eyes faintly luminescent even in death. "What the hell were you people doing here?" he demanded. Sarah swallowed hard. "We were trying to make them stronger. We made them monsters instead." A sudden crash shattered the moment. From deeper in the facility came a chorus of growls, low, resonant, not quite human. Hawk grabbed Sarah's wrist and pulled her toward the nearest reinforced door. "Move!" Rex ran ahead, barking, guiding them through a maintenance tunnel. Inside, Hawk found a small storage room and sealed the door behind them. The sound of pounding echoed outside, then receded. Sarah slumped against the wall, breath shaking. Hawk scanned her face. There was guilt, yes, but also determination. She wasn't broken yet. "If we're getting out of here," he said, "you're going to tell me everything." Sarah nodded slowly. "I will. But you need to understand, what we created wasn't meant for war. It was meant to survive extinction." Hawk frowned. "Looks like extinction came first." She gave a small, bitter laugh, then fell silent. The only sound was the wind howling through unseen vents. Rex settled beside Hawk, head resting on his boot, but his ears still twitching. Hawk felt the weight of his rifle, the tension coiling in his chest. He thought again of Bear, his voice, his laughter, and the promise he'd made to never fail another life he could save. Maybe he thought saving Sarah was that chance. Then Rex lifted his head, ears sharp. The dog stared at the steel door, muscles rigid, a low growl rumbling deep in his throat. Hawk raised his weapon, Sarah's breath catching. A faint scrape echoed from the other side of the wall, slow, deliberate, closer. The lights flickered, once, twice, then went out entirely. The room plunged into darkness. Hawk felt the air shift, the presence of something on the other side. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The metal groaned. A clawed hand began to press through the seam of the door. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Hawk's pulse hammered in his ears as the groaning metal door bent inward, the clawed silhouette pressing harder, testing. Rex snarled, the low rumble vibrating against the concrete floor. Sarah, trembling, fumbled in her bag and pulled out a small flashlight. The thin beam barely pierced the black. The light caught a hand, not human anymore, skin stretched too tight over bone, nails long and black. Hawk fired a single shot through the gap. The impact shook the door, followed by a guttural shriek that didn't sound fully human. Then silence. Hawk motioned for Sarah to kill the light. They waited, hearts pounding, the air thick with the scent of gunpowder and fear. After what felt like minutes, Hawk whispered, "We're moving. Now." Sarah nodded, clutching her satchel as they slipped through a maintenance hatch in the back wall. The tunnel beyond was narrow, metallic, slick with condensation. The emergency lights glowed faint red, flickering every few seconds. Rex led the way, his ears twitching, nose low to the ground. Hawk moved behind Sarah, scanning every shadow. His instincts screamed that whatever those things were, they weren't done hunting. After 10 minutes of cautious movement, they emerged into a larger chamber. A laboratory of some kind. Glass pods lined the walls, half frozen, filled with murky fluid and indistinct shapes suspended inside. Sarah froze. "Oh, God!" Her voice cracked. "These were the earliest subjects." Hawk swept the room with his light. Some pods were shattered, the liquid spilled and frozen in uneven pools. On a nearby workstation, papers were scattered alongside an ID badge belonging to Dr. Alan Mercer. Hawk picked it up. The picture showed a thin man in his 50s, sharp features, gray beard neatly trimmed, eyes full of stern intelligence. Sarah spoke softly. "He was my mentor, the project lead. He believed we could push human evolution beyond natural limits. He said fear was just the mind's failure to adapt." Hawk frowned. "Sounds like a man who never saw what fear really looks like." Sarah exhaled shakily. "He did. His wife died from cancer. That loss broke something in him. After that, all he cared about was conquering death itself." Hawk checked the far end of the lab, spotting a data console still flickering faintly. "Can you pull anything from that?" Sarah hurried over, fingers flying over cracked keys. "If power's still stable in the lower levels, yes, but we'll need to reach the bio core where the main servers are." Hawk grimaced. "Lower levels, huh? Always deeper." He glanced at Rex, who was sniffing one of the broken pods. The dog growled low again, and Hawk saw the cause. Claw marks gouged deep into the metal floor, leading toward a collapsed ventilation shaft. "Whatever broke out of here went down," Hawk muttered. Before Sarah could reply, a metallic bang echoed through the corridor they had just left. Then another. Heavy footsteps. Too many. Hawk pulled Sarah behind a workbench, signaling Rex to stay silent. Through the doorway, figures appeared. 3 of them, shambling yet deliberate. Their uniforms bore remnants of military insignia. Their faces were distorted, eyes glowing faintly blue, but their movements were disturbingly coordinated. One carried a rifle awkwardly, like an echo of memory. Hawk's mind raced. These weren't mindless creatures. They retained fragments of who they once were. Sarah's hand clamped on his arm, eyes wide with horror. "They were the security team," she whispered. The lead creature turned, as if hearing her, and emitted a sound halfway between a hiss and a broken command. Hawk felt adrenaline surge. "We're outnumbered," he murmured. "Stay low." He hurled a flashbang across the lab. The explosion of light and sound filled the chamber. The creature screamed, staggering. Hawk fired controlled bursts, dropping one, then another. Rex lunged at the third, teeth sinking into its arm as Hawk finished it with a clean shot. Silence returned, punctuated only by Sarah's ragged breathing. She stared at the fallen forms, tears glinting in her eyes. "They volunteered," she whispered. "Alan told them it was temporary enhancement, reversible. He lied to all of us." Hawk touched her shoulder gently. "Then let's make sure no one else ends up like them." They pressed onward. The deeper they went, the colder it became, the air heavier with the metallic tang of decay. The tunnel sloped downward into a large lift shaft. Hawk checked the controls. Dead. "Manual descent," he muttered. Using a rusted ladder, they began the slow climb down. Rex followed obediently, paws gripping carefully. Halfway down, a faint noise drifted upward, not mechanical, not human, a rhythmic, almost animal breathing. Sarah looked up at Hawk, fear plain in her face. "There's something alive down there." Hawk's reply was steady, though his heart pounded. "Then we'll deal with it." They reached the bottom, stepping into what looked like a storage hangar. The space was vast, dark, and filled with crates and machinery under layers of frost. A single emergency beacon blinked weakly from a distant corner. Hawk motioned for silence. Rex crept forward, nose twitching. Then, from the shadows, something moved, large, fluid, deliberate. The shape stepped into the dim light. A black wolf, its fur matted and glistening, one flank marked by a deep wound, still seeping blood. Its eyes, bright, unnatural blue, fixed on Hawk. Rex growled but didn't attack. The wolf's gaze held something that wasn't hostility but pain and intelligence. Sarah whispered, awed, "That's impossible. It's one of the test subjects, but it's still alive." Hawk slowly lowered his weapon. "Easy. We're not here to hurt you." The wolf limped forward, breathing raggedly before collapsing, just a few feet away. Hawk knelt beside it, studying the wound. A bullet graze, fresh. Sarah crouched too, voice trembling. "Someone shot it recently. There must be others alive." Hawk nodded grimly. "Or hunting." The wolf's chest rose and fell unevenly, but its gaze never left his. In that moment, Hawk felt a strange connection, not fear, but recognition. The animal's suffering stirred memories of Bear dying in his arms, the helplessness he'd sworn never to feel again. "We'll help it," Hawk said firmly. Sarah looked uncertain. "It's dangerous." Hawk met her eyes. "So am I." As Sarah prepared a field dressing from her kit, the wolf made a low sound, half growl, half whimper, and its body tensed. Rex barked once, sharply. Then came a sound from above, heavy metal scraping, echoing down the shaft they'd descended. Hawk looked up, flashlight catching movement on the ladder, hands, claws, many of them climbing down. Sarah froze. The wolf lifted its head weakly, eyes glowing brighter, as if sensing the threat before any of them. Hawk chambered a fresh round, voice low and calm. "Looks like we're not alone anymore." The pounding grew louder, closer. The light flickered. Then, with a crash, the first creature dropped from the darkness above, landing in front of them with an inhuman snarl. Hawk raised his gun, and the wolf leapt first. The wolf's leap was a blur of motion, black against black. It collided with the creature mid-air, knocking it off balance, both bodies crashing into the icy floor with a snarl that shook the cavern. Hawk raised his rifle, but there was no clear shot. The wolf was fighting like a storm of claws and muscle, faster than he thought possible. The creature, a mutated remnant of the facility's soldiers, swiped wildly, but the wolf tore into its throat with a growl that was both feral and desperate. Sarah froze, clutching her satchel to her chest, her breath trembling. "It's protecting us," she whispered. Hawk didn't answer. His focus was pure instinct, scanning for movement above. More figures began descending the ladder, their blue-lit eyes flickering in the darkness. He fired, the muzzle flash bursting light through the shadows. Two dropped, their bodies twisted unnaturally as they fell. Rex barked sharply, lunging to intercept another that crawled across the ceiling like a spider, its bones bending at wrong angles. Hawk shot it mid-swing. It hit the ground with a wet crunch. When the last echo of gunfire faded, the cavern was heavy with silence again, broken only by the ragged panting of the wolf. Its black fur was slick with blood, some of it not its own. Hawk approached slowly, lowering his weapon. The animal's flank heaved with every breath. He crouched, placing a hand near its side. "Easy. You did good." The wolf didn't growl. It simply looked at him with those glowing blue eyes, filled with something deeper than instinct. Rex came closer, sniffing cautiously, then gave a small whine, as if acknowledging a fellow soldier. Hawk felt that strange pulse again, the same connection that had flared when he first saw it. The wolf had saved them? Why? Sarah knelt opposite him, hands shaking as she examined the wound. "It's losing blood fast. I can stop it, but I need clean gauze and heat." Hawk nodded, pulling out a small thermal pack. "Do it." As Sarah worked, Hawk watched her, her freckled face pale under the dim emergency light, strands of auburn hair clinging to her cheek with sweat. Her movements were precise, almost surgical, but her eyes betrayed something else, fear mixed with guilt. "You've done this before," Hawk said quietly. She didn't look up. "I've patched up worse mistakes than this." The wolf flinched as she pressed the heated cloth against its wound, a low growl rumbling in its throat. Rex sat beside Hawk, ever watchful, as if reading the wolf's pain. Sarah spoke softly, half to herself. "They were never supposed to be weapons. Dr. Mercer wanted to merge human adaptability with animal resilience, to heal soldiers faster, to stop death itself. But when we lost control, the government cut funding. He kept the research going underground. I thought I could stop him. Instead, I helped him perfect it." Her voice cracked. Hawk studied her expression. Remorse had carved lines deeper than age into her face. "So that's why you stayed behind," he said, "to destroy what you built." She met his gaze, tears glinting. "To atone for it." A metallic clang echoed through the tunnel, followed by a faint hum, the power grid flickering to life for the first time in years. Red warning lights ignited along the walls. Sarah stiffened. Someone's rebooting the system. Hawk checked his tracker. A faint signal pulsed from deeper below. "Who else could survive down here?" he asked. Sarah hesitated, her lips tightening. "Mercer. He built a fail-safe bunker beneath the biocore. If the systems came online, it means he's alive." Hawk frowned. "Then we pay him a visit." They fashioned a makeshift stretcher from broken equipment to move the wolf, its massive body surprisingly light under layers of fur. As they descended through the maintenance corridor, the hum of machinery grew louder, the heart of the facility beating once again. They reached a reinforced blast door, half open, marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Beyond it lay a vast chamber filled with biotanks glowing faintly blue. Each tank held a suspended shape, humanoid but wrong, elongated limbs, wolf-like skulls, flesh laced with metal filaments. Sarah recoiled. He continued the trials. Hawk scanned the catwalks above, movement catching his eye. "We're not alone." A figure appeared on the upper platform, tall, thin, wrapped in a heavy lab coat, stained with age. Even from a distance, Hawk could see the deep lines etched into his face, the steel of intellect hardened into madness. Dr. Alan Mercer stepped forward, the cold light casting shadows over his gaunt features. His gray beard had grown wild, eyes fever-bright behind cracked glasses. "Sarah," he called, voice echoing with distorted calm, "you brought outsiders here?" She stepped forward, defiant despite the tremor in her voice. "I came to stop this, Alan." Mercer's expression softened almost kindly. "Stop it? My dear, you helped create the future. Can't you see? They're not monsters. They're evolution." Hawk raised his rifle slightly. "Evolution doesn't murder people in the snow." Mercer smiled faintly. "Every birth requires blood, soldier. You, of all people, should understand that." Rex growled as the wolf stirred on the stretcher, its glowing eyes fixing on Mercer. The scientist's gaze shifted downward, almost tender. "Ah, Subject 7, he murmured, "my finest success. It remembers me." Hawk's pulse quickened. "You made this thing?" Mercer nodded slowly. "Not made. Freed. It was dying when we found it, half frozen, feral. We saved it. It became the bridge between species, stronger than man, purer than beast." Sarah's voice broke. "You turned it into a weapon." Mercer's smile vanished. "I turned it into a survivor. You, Sarah, turned it into a betrayal." Before Hawk could react, Mercer pressed a control panel. A low hum rippled through the floor as the biotanks began to stir, bubbles rising inside the fluid. "You see, evolution doesn't stop," Mercer said softly. "It adapts." One of the tanks cracked, then another. Figures began to move within, pressing against the glass. Hawk cursed, grabbing Sarah's arm. "We're leaving." But the blast door behind them slammed shut with a hydraulic hiss. Trapped. Mercer's voice echoed from the speakers overhead. "Don't fight it, Sergeant Hawkins. You were a soldier built for survival. You'll understand what comes next." The wolf, still weak, struggled to its feet, blood dripping onto the floor. It stood between Hawk and the awakening tanks, its fur bristling, Rex barked furiously beside it, the two animals forming an unspoken line of defense. Hawk raised his gun, eyes darting between Mercer and the shattering glass. Sarah's voice trembled. "Alan, please, stop this before it's too late." Mercer only smiled. "Too late? My dear, it's already begun." The first tank burst open, spraying liquid across the floor. Something stepped out, breathing heavily, the sound more growl than breath. Hawk tightened his grip on the trigger, heart pounding. Above them, Mercer whispered, "Welcome to the new Genesis." The first tank shattered with an explosion of glass and vapor, followed by another, then another. The laboratory filled with the hiss of escaping steam and the sound of movement, wet, uneven, unnatural. Hawk's training kicked in. He grabbed Sarah and pulled her behind an overturned console. Rex barked, teeth bared, as the wolf positioned itself in front of them, body trembling but ready to strike. Shapes emerged from the fog, twisted humanoid forms, skin pale and glistening, eyes flickering faint blue under the harsh red lights. Mercer's voice boomed over the intercom, filled with a manic calm. "Do you see it now, Sergeant? They are not abominations. They are the next step." Hawk's jaw tightened. "They're corpses walking." He opened fire, the muzzle flash illuminating grotesque silhouettes. Bullets tore into flesh, but some of the creatures kept coming, crawling over their fallen kin. Sarah's scream echoed as one reached for her, its face half human, half wolf. The black wolf lunged, colliding with the creature and driving it into a shattered tank. Its claws flashed, tearing the abomination apart. The wolf's wound reopened, blood splattering the floor, but it didn't retreat. It fought like it understood this was its purpose, to protect. Mercer's image flickered on a cracked monitor near the control platform. His face was calm, his eyes shining with feverish pride. "You misunderstand, Hawk. Death was always the enemy. I gave them freedom from it." Hawk reloaded quickly, ducking behind a pillar. "You enslaved them," he shouted. "You turned people into nightmares." Mercer tilted his head. "And yet, here you stand in awe of my creation. Even that animal you protect, it is my legacy." Rex barked and charged, knocking another mutant off its feet. The chaos of the fight seemed endless. Metal groaned, glass shattered, and the air was thick with the stench of chemicals and blood. Hawk felt his arm burn from a shallow slash, but ignored it. Sarah crawled toward the control terminal, hands flying across the keyboard. "I can overload the reactor," she shouted above the noise. "It'll destroy the facility." Hawk fired again, covering her. "Do it." She hesitated, glancing at him. "If I do, no one's getting out." Hawk looked around, the wolf bleeding, Rex panting, the creatures closing in. "Do it anyway." Up above, Mercer's voice softened, almost pitying. "Always the soldier, aren't you? Sacrifice for others no matter the cost. Tell me, did that philosophy save your friend Marcus Barrington?" The name cut through the chaos like a blade. Hawk froze, chest tightening. "How do you know that name?" Mercer smiled faintly. "I studied your file, Sergeant. Pain shapes loyalty. You kept fighting because you couldn't save him. Let me end that pain. Let me make you whole." The offer dripped with poison. Hawk steadied his breath, memories flooding. The snow, bear's blood, his final words. "You're right," he said coldly. "Pain made me who I am, and it's why I'll stop you." Sarah shouted, "Reactor ready! 30 seconds!" The wolf turned, blood dripping from its muzzle, eyes locking on Hawk, as if understanding the stakes. Hawk nodded at it silently. Rex limped to his side, flank bleeding but spirit unbroken. The three of them, the soldier, the dog, and the wolf, stood shoulder to shoulder as the surviving mutants surged forward in a frenzy. Hawk fired until his weapon clicked empty, then drew his knife. "Come on!" he roared, plunging into the melee. Claws raked his armor, teeth snapped inches from his face, but he fought with the calm of a man who'd already accepted death. Rex leapt at a creature twice his size, clamping its throat, while the wolf slammed another into a generator, electricity crackling across its black fur. Sarah hit the final sequence on the console. The alarms screamed to life, red lights flashing faster. Mercer's calm facade finally cracked. "You fool! You'll destroy everything!" Sarah's voice broke with tears. "Exactly." She slammed her fist down, shattering the emergency glass over the manual override. The reactor roared, the entire chamber trembling. Cracks split the ceiling and snow began to fall through the ruptured steel. Hawk grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the emergency lift at the far end. "Move!" But Mercer appeared on the catwalk above, gun in hand, his face twisted with rage. "You won't undo my life's work." He fired, the shot grazing Hawk's shoulder. Hawk returned fire, hitting Mercer square in the chest. The scientist staggered back, clutching the wound. Blood spread across his coat, but he laughed through it, a dry, hollow sound. "You can't kill evolution." Then the floor beneath him gave way, and he disappeared into the light of the collapsing core. The wolf stumbled, collapsing near the lift. Hawk turned back, grabbing its thick fur. "Come on, not yet." The animal looked at him, breath shallow, and pressed its head weakly into his hand. A silent farewell. Then it pushed Rex and Sarah toward the lift with its last strength before falling. Hawk's throat tightened, but there was no time. He dragged Sarah inside, Rex limping beside them. The lift doors closed, and they shot upward as the world below erupted in fire. When the platform finally reached the surface, dawn was breaking. The blizzard had cleared, and sunlight glinted off endless snow. Behind them, the mountain shuddered as a deep explosion echoed through the valley. Smoke rose in a slow black pillar, then faded. Hawk staggered into the cold air, dropping to one knee. Rex pressed against his side, tail wagging weakly. Sarah stood beside them, face streaked with soot and tears. "It's over?" she whispered. Hawk stared toward the horizon. "No," he said quietly. "It's beginning again. Somewhere, someone will try to rebuild." She looked at him. "Then what do we do?" Hawk rose, squinting into the light. "We stay ready." As they walked down the ridge, a movement caught Hawk's eye. On a distant peak, barely visible through the haze, stood a silhouette, large, dark, and still. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a trick of the light. But then it turned its head, and two faint blue eyes glowed against the snow before vanishing into the mist. Hawk smiled faintly. "Rest easy, brother." The wind carried the words away as the snow began to fall once more. In the silence after the storm, when the snow had settled and the mountain no longer trembled, Hawk looked to the horizon and understood something that went far beyond the mission, the science, or even the sacrifice. It wasn't evolution or technology that had saved them. It was grace. The grace to love, to forgive, to keep faith, even when surrounded by darkness. He realized that miracles were not thunderclaps from heaven or flashes of divine light. Sometimes they were quiet, found in courage, in loyalty, in the will to protect others even at great cost. The wolf's final act, Rex's unwavering loyalty, Sarah's repentance, and Hawk's resolve, all were pieces of something sacred. In that frozen wasteland amid the wreckage of human ambition, God's hand had moved quietly, reminding them that even the smallest spark of compassion can thaw the coldest heart. To everyone who reads this, remember, the miracles of God aren't always grand. They often live in our daily choices, in the moments when we choose faith over fear, kindness over pride, and hope over despair. No matter how harsh the storm, there is always light waiting to break through. May God bless everyone who watches, reads, and believes. If this story touched your heart, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe so more souls can feel this message of courage, redemption, and divine mercy. May the Lord guide your path, give you strength in your darkest battles, and remind you that even in the coldest snow, faith is the fire that never dies.